Hi there! Welcome to the Zimmerli Art Museum's virtual Study All Night program. Thanks for taking a study break to spend some time with us. My name is Claire D'Amato, and I am the Assistant Curator of Education here at the museum. I'm also someone who likes to draw in the margins of my notes. That being said, I'll be spending the next few minutes exploring the world of lines and showing you all kinds of doodles that you can create just using a pen and paper, and maybe a highlight or two. So grab your notes, grab some paper, grab whatever writing implements are nearby, and let's get started. All right, so first we're going to explore the weight of a line. So lines can have different thicknesses or weight depending on what they're doing, what they're trying to convey, where they might be in a drawing. So let's just start off by exploring thin, medium, and thick lines, just from like a straight horizontal line. All right, so we've just got here a nice thin line, and it will vary the thickness of your line also depending on what type of writing implement you're using. This is a pretty thin pen, but like a gel pen or a ballpoint pen, they'll all carry a different sort of natural line weight to them. All right, so a medium line here, just pressing a little bit harder. And then for a thick line, I'm just going to sort of double that up so you can really see the purple color of my ink. Now, obviously you can look at thin, medium, and thick lines in different colors, but also in different mediums. For example, I had a highlighter, so here's my thin highlighter line, and here's my regular highlighter line, and a thick highlighter line. Now, most highlighters are pretty good at creating thin, medium, and thick lines, especially if they're a chisel tip highlighter. So you can use the point, you can use the side, you can pretty much use any part of the highlighter point to draw a line. Now obviously, not just straight lines have weight to them. Curvy lines, diagonal lines, wavy lines, jagged lines, even dotted or dashed lines. So for example, here's a nice thin wavy line and a more medium weight wavy line. You can see there's a higher concentration of ink that comes out just because I'm pressing more onto the paper. And then for the thick line, obviously, I'm gonna have to go over it multiple times. And it'll be more difficult with this type of pen just to get it to come out nicely. So it's a poor man's example of a thick line with a gel pen. Now, let's go ahead and keep this in mind as we explore further properties of lines. So next we're going to explore value. So you might be familiar with value in terms of coloring or painting. It basically means moving from light to medium to dark on a color scale. And even though you might not think that you can get different values with just a pen or a pencil, you really can because of something called hatching or cross-hatching. And it basically involves repeating the lines in closer and closer proximity to create the illusion that you're moving from light to dark in a color. So for example, here's just some light value of green. And then as I go further down my scale, you can see I'm putting more lines and they're getting closer together. I might end up even overlapping some of them at some point. Here they're gonna have to get really close together because we're almost at the very dark stage. for dark. You're basically drawing the lines one right next to the other. And you can go in and fill empty space up with lines. It's sometimes difficult if you're moving fast to be able to fill up all of the space sort of on the first shot. So you can see here how there's a nice progression from light to dark in the intensity of the color just by the amount of lines that we're adding. So we can also do this with vertical lines and highlighter. And it's almost like when you get to the really dark part with your highlighter, like you would be coloring the whole square in, but you're not actually coloring it in like you would, in a coloring book or something. You're coloring it just by using the repetition of lines. Now, cross-hatching, I had some wavy and jagged lines set up, but we're gonna actually move to cross-hatching because that's a really popular technique that you would find in a lot of works on paper, drawings and prints that we have in the museum's collection. And you'll find it in many illustrations that you might see in textbooks or even online now. So it's basically just crossing lines. So lots of different diagonals. It's also a little easier if you wanted to try this if you don't make your reference squares quite so big like I did. Like I was saying before, it's a lot harder now to be able to get the type of coverage I'm looking for if I don't slow down my pace and make each stroke really intentional. But because you guys are on a study break, I don't want to take up too much of your time by making all of my lines extremely accurate. Just getting the point across for you. And you can see especially here how an artist would be able to use this kind of close cross-hatching or even closer cross-hatching to create really intense light and dark values in whatever piece they were creating. All right, this is our last foray into investigating the properties of lines, and then I'll show you a couple cool things that you can do with some of the different types of lines that we've looked at. But I don't know about you, but I definitely think lines can express an emotion or a feeling. They can really be used to convey an action or an expression. So even though a line might be seemingly simple, you can use it to really put forth a lot of information. I know sometimes, like if I'm working on a math problem that's really hard and I get frustrated and angry, I'll end up putting a lot of pressure on the pen or pencil that I'm using. So the pigment comes out really dark and very jagged and angular sometimes, just expressing my frustration through my lines. But if I'm writing a note to a friend, I might use more bubbly, wavy handwriting just because I'm happy or I'm excited and there's no difficult equation that I have to solve. So I just figured we could create some lines together to express the emotions and feelings that I've written down here. Some of them you might be feeling right now during finals period. So happy lines, I'm just doing little sort of like upside down half circles, or kind of like the letter U a little bit, but they're just kind of happy, almost like a check mark in a way. I think they have a certain energy to them. And then sad, all of my lines would sort of be curving down, I think. And they wouldn't be terribly close together, because I think the closer together the lines are, the more energy they seem to have. I think angry lines, even though I don't consider myself to be very angry very often, angry lines are really fun to make. And you can almost feel sometimes like your pen or your pencil or your marker is going to break right through the paper. That's how you really know how you're feeling about that. Excited lines, exclamation points I think are really a good way of showing excitement, because you've got this quick stroke and then just a dot to finish it off. So it looks happy, it looks joyful, it's like something's gonna happen. Calm lines, I might think of like a gentle wave. Not a rough wave like you might see in the middle of the ocean, but just some calm ripples. For anxiety, I would probably do something that looks more jagged and close together. Might throw a few dots in there to create some confusion. You know, like you don't quite know what you're looking at. Confused, that always sort of makes me think of these spirals. Because sometimes your mind is just turning around, and a spiral is a really good way to sort of show how your thoughts can just keep spinning and spinning and get lost somewhere in the ether, or somewhere in the back of your brain. And then I really like this dot and dash combo for tired lines. It's elegant, but it's quiet, sort of calming. And it's one of those monotonous types of patterns you can make where after a while it might even sort of put you to sleep just by having your eyes move back and forth between all the dots and dashes. So when you're drawing in the margins of your notes or making your own pictures while you're taking a study break or out and about, keep in mind the types of expressions that can come out of your lines. Keep in mind the way you can use line to create light and shadow and different values. And keep in mind that lines are not necessarily straight or curved. Sometimes they have dots, sometimes they have angles, sometimes they're spinning. They can be anything you want them to be, and they can help you create anything you want to create. Now, obviously, I'm not here just to teach you about how to draw lines. I don't think any of us would have gotten this far in life if we didn't know how to draw a line, but I thought it would be neat to sort of go over some of the things we just talked about and then help you see how you can use them in some drawing prompts that, you know, might help you refocus your mind a little bit, might help you sort of reach a bit of a calm headspace. So I ended up sort of just drawing these two simple drawings. One is a sunrise, one is a snowman because it is December. But you can pull pretty much any line drawing off the internet. If you have a coloring book, that will work well also. But what's important is that we're going to use different types of lines to fill in all of these empty areas. So for example, with my sunrise here, I decided I want to color in my sun. And this is something that you can do with your highlighter, with some markers that you might have. You know, even if you happen to have a paintbrush and some coffee, that could work too. Doesn't have to be perfect. All right. Now I'm going to let that dry for just a little bit. And I think I'm going to start doing some lines in my cloud. So I think what I'm going to do is just fill my cloud up with some circles, which technically can count as lines, because I think this will really help accentuate the fluffiness of the clouds and bring some fun energy to the picture. So what I would continue to do is fill in the rest of this cloud, but I'm just using this as an example so you can kind of get an idea of the types of what are called Zen doodles that you can do if you want to, you know, just sort of experiment and see what kind of lines you can come up with. You definitely don't need to be an artist to do this type of activity. I certainly don't consider myself to be an artist, but who doesn't love, you know, drawing little outlines or, you know, filling in the empty spaces on some bubble letters or, you know, a memo during a meeting or something like that. So for my sun, I think I'm going to just use some curved lines. So what I'm doing is following the shape of the sun, that half circle. And if you really wanted to get adventurous, I mean, you could very well fill in every single one of these spaces, you know, with alternating colors, with a variety of colors. You know, you can really take these drawings as far as you would like to. So here we have our sun, pretty simple. Now let's just experiment with a little bit of cross-hatching on one of the rays of the sun. All right, now I'm going to decorate one of the rays from the sun using some cross-hatching. So I think just for the sake of time, we'll do this narrow one on the side. So I'm gonna make my diagonal lines. And I think I want my cross-hatching to be a little darker at the base of the sun and get lighter as it goes out. So I'm just gonna fill in some more lines down here. And then make my opposite lines. Sometimes you might have to rotate your paper around a little bit, particularly if it's big like this. You can sort of see now how the value from the cross-hatching really moves from light to dark as it moves out from the sun. So that's definitely a technique you can try. The next one I would do just for fun, sort of the one over in this corner, just to give you a sense of what a more complete area of this type of design might look like. So I think I'm going to use my dots and dashes. Now the nice thing about all of these is that nothing has to be perfect. If some of your lines are longer than others, that's fine. If some of your lines don't quite match up, that's okay too. If you make a dot too big, a dot too small, it all works. The whole point of doing these types of little doodle drawings is to just give your brain a break. You know, allow it to focus on something that's not important. You might end up creating something really neat. You might end up with a mess. You might end up with a hole in your paper from pressing your pen too hard. It's all fine. As long as it gets you out of your headspace for a little bit of time, you've achieved the goal. I'm going to go ahead and work on this snowman for a little while. So why don't you try to create some doodles of your own, and I'll see you in a little bit and show you what I was able to do. Thanks so much for joining us for this year's virtual study all night. We hope that you enjoyed spending time with us and making some little doodle designs. Maybe they will help you study. Maybe they will help your mind clear itself. And we wish you good happiness, good health, and a happy 2021. Hope to see you when we reopen.